We've lost the longest serving first lady in our history. Yesterday she was called to glory. As Sky will say, she has joined the majority. And she's been the conversation. Her legacy, her life, her impact, and everything that came with the phenomenon called Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. For many, is the end of an era. But for me, moments like this are really the beginning. Because when we actually highlight their stories, people begin to share their encounters with people like these. And those stories sow seeds into the lives of the next generation. And so, yes, it may be the end of an era physically, but I see the beginning of bigger things. Of course, we respect the need for privacy for the family. And for a public figure like this, who has been very much an integral part of our social life and our history, you know, it's not just the politics she did, it's not even just the women empowerment. You saw her come alive at entertainment grounds, wherever there was a concert, wherever you will see her. And I recall fondly when she took to the dance floor with President Kufuor and Jerry John Rawlings joined in. At the time, we were very young, right? But we heard of the story of the rivalry, bitter one, between her husband and President Kufuor at the time. So seeing them on the dance floor, it was such a beautiful sight, and she has been a delight to watch. Many have written their experiences with her. So much has been written about her. We'll get into that. You can share with us what your encounters and experiences with her has been. 0549 986 996. Earlier on the business edition, the market women were telling us how impactful the 31st December market daycare that she built across the country helped make their lives much easier. Sky, like I was saying, when people pass, for many, especially people who rise to prominence and do a lot in the public eye, it's described as the end of an era. An era has come to an end with its impact, its legacy, and of course the controversies that may have come with that personality's days here while he or she was here. But like I say, it's usually when people like that pass that their stories are retold. So we like to say that, let's celebrate people while they are here. While that is true, usually at the end of their physical tenure here, people then recollect and reflect their encounters with such persons. And I think that process of resharing or telling stories of people's encounters should not be condemned at all. Because people like to say, we waited till they've passed before you are now saying X, Y, and Z. But I feel that for the many who may not have encountered such persons, it's a great opportunity for them to pick lessons and also see how they can guide their life, because when people pass, interviews they've done, suddenly everyone is trying to watch. Those who might have missed out would want to catch up and understand who this person is and why they meant so much to a certain group of people within a certain age bracket. So I think that as many people who have encountered any of our greats should go ahead and share their stories, because it's a good time for those who must have missed them to also know. And then it tells you also the power of little things. My friend Stanley Tordison, he went to, I think, the 31st December Women's Movement. There's a school within the ministries area, and he was talking about how he had a report card with the 31st December Women's thing, and on this report card, the First Lady was supposed to have signed it. But that's one, his isn't signed. So you always look forward to meeting her and she signing it. But the other thing he also talked about was the fact that because their school was within the ministry, anytime there was any state event, it was the kids from that school, they represented, they were at the march, they were here, she would show up. And people talk about the impact such appearances have on them, even as little as they are. And it tells you that, the little things matter. So I'm trying to say that the little things we do that we may even take for granted. Sometimes just stopping by to say hello to someone who you mean so much to will change a lot in their lives. But you're also thinking about just how busy you are and you don't have so much time. Anyway, let me just.
Before Sky comes
Yes.
in, something you said that I would like to pick on.
Yeah.
The I grew up watching Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. I was very young. I can't tell how old, but I was very young watching a woman like her.
Yeah.
And that's why I agree with the headline the Catalyst newspaper used, a woman like no other. I remember I was fascinated by this woman.
Yeah.
She was bold, she was confident,
Yeah.
she stood by the president, and she wasn't, the typical first lady. This is without any prejudice to any other, but she wasn't your typical first lady who would follow the president here and there. You would see her with the president then, Jerry John Rawlings, but you also see her by herself leading her tasks, when it comes to the 31st December Women's Movement, leading her campaigns for women's empowerment. You would recall her participation in the Beijing conference. Yeah. This was not an ordinary woman, and for every young girl out there, you watched her, and you had the room. Definitely, you were inspired, and your mind had the room to dream that big.
Right.
So her existence then, and this is all politics aside, gave that inspiration that told you that you can be bold, you can be assertive, you can aspire to do whatever you want to do.
That's very important. Sky.
Well, I mean, Kakra couldn't have put it any better. I think we are shaped by the many people we come into contact with, who we learn from, who we, have disagreements with, who we fight with, who we laugh with, and all of that. As I was saying much earlier, I mean, growing up in those early years of my life, when we had access to black and white television, you would normally see the news of GTV, right? When the president travels, or the Chairman Rawlings, as he was called at the time, came back, you saw, him in some cases alone, in some other cases with the First Lady. And I first became really conscious of her exploits, when I saw my mother with there was this T-shirt that 31st December Women's Movement T-shirt, Market Women. It was in black and white. You had some circle in front of it, and then you had Nana Konadu's portrait embossed on it with a red beret. It wasn't properly artistically designed, because I think those days it was difficult to actually do precision printing, so they did screen printing and blah blah blah. And if you were close to market women, my mother, is a market woman, so, and they took so much interest in this, like they would die for it, and they understood what it meant to be empowered economically.
Yes.
Because in many cases they were holding the fort for men, in the house, if the men went out to do what they needed to do, or in cases where the men were not taking charge of the home, the women would not allow their kids to go hungry. So they would be out there fighting for every space to be able to provide for their kids. And, every time I saw my mom in that shirt, I became curious. What was this about? What was it about? And then eventually I was able to connect that with the television pictures that I was seeing with the president, or the Chairman Rawlings those days. And then I remember that, during those early years, the First Lady came to Kajranao, as I said much earlier. I must have been at the primary school, or the GSS, one of them. I think it was a primary school, actually. And then we were told that, okay, today, there wasn't going to be any school. The First Lady was coming to town, and they selected a handful of us, together with students from other schools, so that we could go and, receive her. And I remember vividly the time that she came. And all the women were in this T-shirt I was talking about, with all kinds of, things to receive her when she came to town. It was beautiful. And being a kid in that crowd, the energy with which she came, the things she was articulating, which there was a translator translating, she was speaking English, and there were people who were doing the ever translation. And the things she was talking about, empowerment, getting jobs done, people who need to go into what do you call it? Sewing. People who needed to go into making soap. All of these things, entrepreneurship. I mean, and the women came with their bowls, and it was a truly beautiful sight. Of course, my perception of what was reality those days, a bit tempered by where I was confined to, you understand? But growing up, seeing the stories coming to Accra, and the force of her presence around Jerry Rawlings, her command within the space of NDC matters, leaving office, the turmoil around leaving office, the John Kufuor years, early years, the prosecution, coverage of those trials in court, the back and forth, the accusations of you are trying to persecute a distinguished former first lady who fought for this country, empowered women. And I remember going back, their return from Beijing, because I saw those pictures. 95. I saw those pictures.
Beijing conference.
Yes, and when they came off the plane and blah blah blah. In fact, there was a documentary that was done and played in those years. I don't remember. GBC did something which covered various aspects of their trip to Beijing, and how Ghanaians received the former first couple and blah blah blah. And later years, reading about the force of the Beijing conference, the things that conference stood for. Look, if we sit today and we talk about empowerment, with the greatest respect, we owe a lot of the credit we accrue today to the force of Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. She was articulate. She knew what she wanted. A powerful, matriarch. Is that the word they used to describe? Yes, Nana, what do you call it? Apioko is here. And how to play with power.
I'm telling you.
You understand? She was obvious in your face, but she was doing the work. She wasn't the kind of first lady you see reserved to the background and was called and told what she needed to do. When the husband was there fighting to protect his own legacy as president or head of state, she was also there doing her bit, because I think she understood, as I heard her say somewhere, that look, you have the majority of the people in the country being women, right? They have a force in the bedroom and beyond the bedroom. You understand? Beyond the house, they have so much command. We get things done. So you might wake up one day and say, oh, they say somebody has been fired from work. You don't know how the person got out of that space. Because of a certain force. They provide counsel, they provide guidance. And when you are able to mobilize women the way she did, look, it takes a certain wisdom. And if you understand how she got the name, Kunedu, right? Like you should fight until the very end. Oh, named after the Ashanti female ruler who took over the reins of the Ashanti kingdom following the capture of the former Prempeh, the one who was taken to Seychelles. Yes. So if you understand how she was named, you will be marveling at what she's been able to achieve.
She's lived up to it.
She's lived it. And look, anytime I saw her, I was always in awe, because seeing her as a child, meeting her in the courtroom when she was on trial, the later years when, after amnesty or whatever, the state filed nolle prosequi, Mills, Kufuor was leaving office. The interviews were there thereafter, and when she became flag bearer, aspirant, how that went in Sunyain, we were there. We did all the interviews, the controversy. And when she decided to break her way to form the NDP, I was almost always in their press conferences with the likes of the Honorable Michael Tenyaonu. And and the NDC people said that you every time you are pointing your microphone in the NDC, blah 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 blah. I think that in many ways, look, if the story of the Fourth Republic is told, and in fact Ghana is told, she will occupy a vast chapter. And we can only pray that she will rest in perfect.
There was a story I read talking about the impact she made through her service and her legacy. There was a story I read earlier on 11th November 2024. This was last year. So yesterday when the news of her passing hit, my mind went back quickly to that particular script. And our colleague Fentio wrote that sometime back here in November. He says, "Where I'm from, Vamboy, a tiny village just outside of Tumu in the Upper West region, to have a boy as your first child was considered a big blessing. Above all other things, your worth as an asset was going to be determined by how much you contributed as a farmhand. For starters, I had to do errand, fetch water, bring a cutlass, head the cattle, this and that, as soon as I could steadily place one foot in front of the other. It was pretty much the same for every family. But some of that changed quite significantly in 1991, when the 31st December Women's Movement put up the village's very first school, a day nursery. Suddenly, there was a fresh incentive for parents to consider the prospect of formal education. It wasn't so straightforward, as some needed persuasion to enroll their wards. Even fathers, the sole decision makers, traditionally, in what is very much a patriarchal society, were urged to volunteer a child each towards assembling the inaugural batch of pupils. And that included my father, who at the time had just one child. Surely, he had every reason not to heed that call, and the Lord knows there were more than a few who tried to get him to decline, as after all, others who had children in the tens could afford to send half of them to the school and barely feel the pinch on the farm. The odds were stacked against my father, and thus against me, but ultimately he made the difficult decision to take me to school. I made it just in time for the day of the school's commissioning, an occasion to be graced by no other personality than the then First Lady of Ghana, who doubled as founder of the DWM. That's the
December Women's Movement.
Precisely, Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. With a nursery full of children and a child to put on a proper show, the teachers got to work, teaching us basic nursery rhymes. I was quite good at those, and that perhaps was where my lifelong interest in the English language began. I was one half of a duo picked to perform those well-rehearsed rhymes for the sufficiently impressed First Lady and her entourage. Nuratu, a cousin, was the other. It is till date my most valid recollection of my otherwise unremarkable childhood. I remember the reaction after I was done performing A Lion. I was no older than 5 years old, yet I could see that everyone present, my beaming father especially, was really proud of me. Oh, there were people from neighboring villages as well. The atmosphere was almost like what you could expect to feel at a political rally. And maybe it was really unofficially unofficially. The general elections, Ghana's first since mid-1979, were coming up the very next year. Mrs. Agyeman-Rawlings' husband, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, was reportedly eyeing a transition from military dictatorship to becoming the first democratic president of Ghana's soon-to-be-born Fourth Republic. Mind you, I have only come to appreciate all this history years after, only with the benefit of hindsight, of course. What I did know for a fact back then, though, was that this event presented me with the first opportunity to see a 4x4 vehicle. Lots of them, and I sat in one beside the then First Lady, Mrs. Agyeman-Rawlings. Wow. She took Nuratu and myself in her car after the program and proceeded to campaign in other parts of the district before bringing us back to our village. The joy of that ride lasted a fair few days before all that joy was replaced by creases on my rather prominent forehead, and for good reason. We had been told the day's event would be on national television not long afterwards. Hence, each evening found us gathering around Mr. Dentier's battery-powered TV, hoping to catch the news item and bask in the glow of it. Yet, weeks passed with nothing in sight, and my father, every bit as disappointed as myself, eventually stopped taking me on those news-watching, thrill-seeking visits. It goes on and on and on to tell you how, just narrating how, the dedication to education, showing up and involving the kids.
So you see,
made such a lasting impact on.
Let me just give you a
life.
quick list of the things that
Sure.
Beijing stood for, right?
Sure.
It was held in 1995, right? But actually, the campaign actually spanned 1975 to 1995. And it built on political agreements that had been reached at 3 previous global conferences on women. And it consolidated decades of legal advices aimed at securing the equality of women with men in law and practice. More than 17,000 participants attended the conference, including 6,000 government delegates, and she was part of the government delegation that went. More than 4,000 accredited NGO representatives and a host of international civil servants, and around 4,000 media representatives. Now, these were the key areas. The conference marked a significant turning point for the global agenda for gender equality. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, adopted unanimously by 189 countries, was an agenda for women's empowerment that is now considered the key global policy document on gender equality.
Yeah.
It set strategic objectives and actions for the advancement of women and achievement of gender equality in 12 critical areas of concern. The first, women and poverty. And I saw her in action dealing with that when she was training my mother. Education and training of women. Charlie, women and health, because maternal mortality was a big issue. Violence against women, in those days, particularly across the continent of Africa, a lot of wars were happening, and women were being abused all over the place. Women and the economy, as I was saying. Economic empowerment. Women in power and decision making. Institutional mechanism for advancement of women. Human rights of women. Women and media. And women and the environment, as well as the girl child.
So it's a tall list, and we'll get back to it very shortly. But Bernard, we have Kofi Adams on the line.
Yeah, we also have Apioko here. Apioko, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Kofi
Good
Adams
morning.
was at a point the spokesperson of the Rawlingses. That's how I got to know of Kofi Adams many years ago. He's now the Minister of Sports, but also the Member of Parliament for Boem. So we
And he used to be a youth leader in the NDC.
Yes.
In fact, he was in that position when he was co-opted to become.
You also used to be a teacher at Adisa College.
Yeah.
So let's put all that in context. Let's just take some thoughts from him on the death of Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings and what her life meant to us. Honorable Kofi Adams, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Hello, good morning. Yeah, we'll fix the line shortly.
Yeah.
Kofi Adams is on the line. We will speak to him in the next few moments. I just wanted to add to what Kai said. I think it's quite interesting that the government went to China 2025. That's 30 years after Beijing. And it's also a women's empowerment conference. They came back only last week.
Yeah.
So the 30 years, so the Beijing 95, Beijing 2025.
Yeah.
Maybe in a sense that encapsulates her life. I encourage listeners to get her book. She's one of the few political leaders in Ghana who's actually written a book. It's called It Takes a Woman. I recall Samens interviewing her on that in the footprints.
Yeah.
So I recommend you get that book because she outlines a lot of things. The first time I actually started taking an interest in her life, I was reading the autobiography of Dr. Evans Amfom, who was the second African Vice Chancellor of KN University.
When was this?
Evans Amfom's book was written in 2005.
Okay.
And he's a surgeon. He was the second African to be VC of Tech after taking over from RP Balfour, Fritz Balfour's father. And he was writing about the student leaders he worked with when he was VC at KN University. And he spoke about the student leadership group led by PV Obing.
Yeah.
And
Former presidential advisor.
yes, that group also included the former majority leader of MPP, it's called
Felix Owusu-Ejapong.
Felix Owusu-Ejapong. And Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings was an assistant organizing secretary also of the SRC of KNUST because she was doing textile and design. And many people believe that it was her friendship with PV Obing that even brought him because they were, of course, she went to Achimota School and her knowledge of PV Obing as part of the SRC in tech in those years was what convinced President Rawlings to bring PV into government. Let's come to Kofi Adams. So, Honorable Kofi Adams, thanks for joining us. Good morning. We're still having some technical challenges with the line, and we'll try and use a different connection to bring him. So I just trying to say that her politics actually started before even her husband became, because a lot of people want to tie her influence to, she's the wife of Rawlings, which is true. But that history material, and Anson writes about the remarkable leadership qualities of that SRC group. Okay, PV Obing, Nana Konadu, and Felix Owusu Japan, who all later become political leaders in Ghana's future. So I just wanted to put that out there that as an activist, she's been doing this before she met Rawlings. Of course, being the daughter of G.O.T. Agyeman, a prominent Ashanti aristocrat as well, is also part of her story. So as Kai was trying to say, her family lineage and how she was brought up already she was on a path to that type of influence. So it's no surprise that a few months after Rawlings came in, she founded the 31st December Women's Movement, which for a lot of people in that time, people interpret that as just a political movement. But you see, to try and empower women economically in the early 80s, in a period of extreme poverty, is a serious thing. So it's education, economic empowerment of market women. Ghana is one of the few countries in the world with a majority of entrepreneurs being women. Why? Because our market women are entrepreneurs. And she realized that to empower a woman is to empower her economically. And that was 40 years ago, before a lot of us started discussing these things. So it's not even just Beijing, all right? The idea of giving women an education, she forced a lot of women to do adult literacy.
Right.
So a lot of what she was doing was not just economic. She realized that if you give a woman an education, you've empowered her to be influential and to be independent. All right? Because we do know that the more you educate a woman, the more economically empowered she becomes, the more agency she has over her body, the more she's able to be even managing the reproductive process and not necessarily having too many kids. All of those things are education. And she started talking about these things in the 80s. So in many ways, she was a pioneer and a trailblazer. But because of the character of her husband and how prominent he was, you would have thought that she would be overshadowed. But I think she carved her own path. And you can't argue that she's one of the most influential first ladies on the African continent, having almost 21 years of doing that. So her legacy will be strong. And we are happy she wrote a book. She told her own story. She didn't allow her story to be told by other people. And so for me, I think that, of course, a lot of people may not agree with her politics. Even within the NDC, there are people who have issues with the fact that she dared to challenge Mills in 2011, 2012, and dared to run for president in 2016. But if you put all of that in the context of a country's history, I think Nana Konadu stands tall. I think maybe you should interview Kofi. Maybe I'm the problem. So you should. Okay, no, he's on the line.
That's right. I just want to mention quickly that we returned from China no long ago.
That's what I was saying.
Just 2 days ago.
Yes.
Japan, for the first time in their history,
had a woman
elected a female prime minister. I mean, look at the
Anyway, let's talk to Kofi Adams. Kofi, I hope this line is better now. Honorable Kofi Adams, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. I guess I can say condolences to you because, in a sense, because of your work, you've become part of the family, correct?
Well, more than part of the family. I must say, politically, all of us today have a political party we belong to, believed in, because that platform was created by Her Excellency Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings and her colleagues and other contemporaries. And we have carried on. It was they we saw. It was they we followed. It was they we understood. Saw what it is that they represented. And later on, when we drove into the multi-party constitutional democracy, we found it necessary to join the party that was created to carry on with such projects. Projects, social intervention, things that brought needs of the people at the center. And I am a key beneficiary in many of these areas. So it's more than a family. And it's a big loss to me personally, our political party, and as a country.
So how did you get to become spokesperson for the Rawlingses? And what type of relationship did that engender between you and the former First Family?
Well, being a spokesperson means that you are in the ends of the family. You know virtually everything that you are supposed to know, and you know what is beyond what maybe you will be communicated out there. And so you must be truly part and parcel of the family. And I was appointed a full spokesperson when now Ambassador Smith was removed from that office. That was when I became officially the spokesperson. But before then, I've been with the family in different capacities. And you are involved at the community level, you are involved at the regional level. You should also take note that before I became the Deputy National Youth Organizer, I was also Constituency Youth Organizer, Constituency Secretary, and Regional Youth Organizer for Central Region for 2 terms before becoming a Deputy National Youth Organizer and Deputy General Secretary and National Organizer. So I've been involved in a number of activities and involved especially with Her Excellency Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings because of so many community projects that she got involved in, whether it was women empowerment, through farming, through processing of some of the food products, through organization of women, giving them a voice, teaching them various home management skills, the young people, education and health, and all these. She cared so much about the family unit. She cared so much about community drive that as a first lady, that was the first time we were seeing a first lady that is interested in going to farms of her movement. A first lady that is interested in removing high-heeled shoes and dirtying herself in the faraway communities and seeing the reality of lives that confronted various communities and families. And that was, look, many people today have had good education because of the intervention of Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings and her 31st December Women's Movement. She made sure, even as she empowered these women to become commercially viable, she placed educational facilities close to their point. So you see market, and the next thing you see is a daycare, a crèche, or a KG. So that whilst you are selling, your child will have a safe environment to stay and be learning until such time when the child is old enough to be away from the mother. And in other words, can go to school a bit far while the mother goes to the market to do whatever it is that she wants to do. She brought education, so that child is not denied. That child don't grow later to feel like, no, the classroom is not my place. My place is at the market, because that was where I was with my mother all the way up till age 6. So even when the person reached the age to be able to start normal school, the child is not interested in going to school. She saw this very early and brought it closer to the people. That's why you find a lot of schools near our markets long ago.
Kofi, a lot of our listeners, or some of our listeners, may be much younger, so may not have experienced her public life as a first lady. Most of them may probably have heard, oh, that is Mrs. Rawlings. So two things for us. What type of person was she? Because we also heard that it wasn't a very easy relationship, even with media, because she stood her ground. She was part of a very complicated government. So what was it like dealing with her personally? What type of person was Nana Konadu for those who just saw her on television or read about her in the newspapers?
So what it was that even as it is today, the media kind of found a way to be the opposition of what is supposed to have been opposition. And don't forget that she came in a time that we of course didn't have constitutional democracy. So there was really no voice opposing government. It was a military regime that was in place. So the media, of course, no matter what form it was, including even the state and the private outside of the country, will find a way of mirroring the voice of those opposed to the regime. And so you would expect to see a certain level of as if the person is not friendly to the media. But if you check from those who were in the media, especially the state media and what have you, she was one of the nexus, one of the very close persons, one of the go-to persons who especially gave voice to the women in broadcasting. She gave a lot of voice to many of them. But it wasn't as liberalized as it is today. So you may find it as if she was really opposed to media, but she was much more open, a bit more open to the media than even many other persons.
See,
she was much more open. But one thing you could say for her was that she, together with President Rawlings, had a mind that governance must be closer to the people. The people must participate they must participate in decisions that affected them. Even during the non-constitutional era, and that was what birthed what we describe as the local government concept, and bringing in, encouraging even women then to contest as assembly members, to have a voice.
Kofi, so her legacy in governance and women empowerment is unquestionable. I have a last but one question for you. It seems as if her relationship with the NDC took a turn for the worst. First, when she dared challenge Mills, I think it was 2011-2012 election, internal election flag bearership, and then 2016, by which time she had formed the NDP, she also ran for president. So I'm not sure what the feeling among the whole NDC will be, because you know when President Rawlings died in November 2020, I mean, you can say that Rawlings being the founder, his legacy in NDC is intact. But I think it's different for Nana Konadu because she formed a different political party. So it's almost, it's checkered, right? The relationship with the NDC is not been the smoothest. So even in death, we can still admire her legacy as a first lady and still admit that things didn't really end with the NDC the way maybe many people thought could have been 20 years ago, correct?
Well, Bernard, I will not say no to this question that you have asked. That is, for me, the most painful part of the story. Indeed, it remains the most painful part of the story, because truly speaking, her beliefs, her values are in NDC. And NDC, in terms of values and everything, will remain her home. I so strongly believe that in few years before this unfortunate passing yesterday, her heart will still remain with NDC. And the wish could have possibly been that to see a full reintegration, because after all, the political party she she founded in a way has not been able to galvanize the numbers to push any value other than what the NDC represented. That remains for me the most unfortunate situation. That contest, as some people say, they thought should not have happened, but even when it happened, should not have resulted in the kind of outcomes that we witnessed. And I believe it's been a lesson. And subsequently, the NDC have been able to manage situations much better in terms of its internal contest than we did during that period and before. In 2002, when late Professor Kwesi Botchwey, then Dr. Botchwey, and late President Mills contested for the flag bearership, we saw some MPs resigning. Abraham Kofi Asante resigned from the party after that contest. In 2005, after the party's internal contest, Dr. Obeda Samoa and his team also left to form a reform party, and so on and so forth. So we have faced these challenges. But you would observe that after the 2011 internal contest, the NDC have gone through a lot of other internal contests that has not seen the party split. Indeed, the party has become even stronger after such contests. In 2018, we saw Chairman Ofosu Ampofo and now other executives run for the elections. We saw in 2019 a lot of candidates coming against now President John Dramani Mahama. We saw a further repeat of it. We saw the General Secretary and the incumbent chairman go through a very tough elections, and we have. So some lessons have been learned out of that process, and I believe that we still have opportunity to continue to grow this party that President Rawlings was the founding father, and Nana Konadu, truly, if there is anything to say, was the one who carried and birthed that party. So you can say she's more like the mother.
So you say that her legacy in NDC, though marred by her forming a new party, she still will have a place in the NDC party when all the chips are down?
You can't write the history of NDC and leave out Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. Then you haven't talked about the NDC. There is no way anybody can talk about NDC, even up to date, today. You come talking about the NDC successes today, and you cannot link those successes, some of it to Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. There are some who are members of NDC today, and that is the only reason they are members of NDC, because they believe that in as far as their mind is concerned, that party NDC was birthed by her. So any other thing she did is not birthed by her. It's birthed by something else. And that NDC is a real party. You have people like that today. Even in my constituency, in Buim, when you still find people that for them they are in NDC because of the 31st December Women's Movement. And they are who they are because of Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings.
Wow.
So even today, that she said she has even left and formed a party, registered a party, has become a candidate of the party, and so on and so forth. There are people in NDC
Kofi,
who are working for NDC, doing everything for NDC because of her.
Thank you for talking to us, and again, condolences to you, and hopefully we'll speak soon when you return. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Kofi Adams is a former spokesperson of the former First Family, the Rawlings family, and he is a member of parliament for Buem.
Yeah,
and
Buem.
the Minister for Sports. Apyako is here. Let's hear from here before we see if we can speak to another final person. Apyako, you're wearing black.
I am.
Don't tell me you have a spoken word already.
I do.
Hey! Already.
But I'm not going to share it.
Not now.
No, but I am a feminist, very proudly so. And for us, my generation of feminists, it was Nana Konadu that we looked to.
Yeah.
Being very young, my family didn't move back to Ghana from the US until the late 90s. So during the Beijing conference, when she was standing with Hillary, all those pictures, that kind of pride.
You were in the US.
In the US, that the Ghanaian First Lady
Show that.
had become so prominent on this platform. It was a very big deal.
Yeah.
And then we came back, my father is an academic. My mother, very passionate about young people. Now there's an entity called the Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, and it's a global forum which came out of Africa. So it's women who are educated and then have a passion for educating, especially girls, because girls were disadvantaged through our traditions, the way we place them when it comes to education and whatnot. Like the story you read, Caleb. Now, Nana Konadu at some point was the chairperson of FAWE. And so if you remember this song, send your girl child to school, send your girl child to school, send your girl. That was a FAWE initiative. And Nana Konadu was very much a part of that.
Right.
So she was very deliberate in working with entities and systems to make sure that that change, that empowerment that we needed for women and for girls happened. We can also talk about By the Fireside, because don't forget the woman was an artist.
Oh, it was a first Zimba program?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Very much so.
Anytime the
Very much so.
scrolled up.
Very much so.
End
You look at the end credits, it's there.
Mami Dokun and Dr. Roku.
Yes. So placing the mother figure, the matriarchal figure
Oh,
that our culture respects
I didn't
and
even
knows,
think about
and
it.
then using that figure to educate the public. Very, very much so. And my aunt, my dad's elder sister, may she rest in peace, the Honorable Beatrice Naifri Ashong, was also a member of the 31st December Women's Movement. And through that, she ended up becoming the first ever MP for the Bunkatamanso constituency. So it also hits very close to home. And then lastly, what I'll say is I was a girl guide. Yes,
I was a Boy Scout.
I was a girl guide. And Nana Konadu was actually
I was a Boy
very
Scout. I went to Boy Scout camp. Even slept in a tent.
Oh yes, plenty.
Yes,
No,
you were
we
a girl
did
guide
all.
too. Yeah,
Girl
we
guide-
did
so
all.
we did camps, and she was very deliberate about placing the girl guides, young as we were, on big platforms. I'll give you an example. When President Clinton visited Ghana in 1998, we lined up with Ghanaian flags and American flags to welcome him as girl guides. When Queen Elizabeth came, not too long after that, we were taken to go and meet her at the airport. Some of the brownies, as we call them, the younger girl guides, were made to present flowers. And she would come to camp sometimes, encourage us and whatnot. So for someone like me, my generation of women, when we are saying women's empowerment, it's not just shouting. We've seen what has been done, and we know the shoes to fill
I
are
remember
big.
there was a day I'll never forget. I was watching the Black Queens. I think it's one of the first times they were going to play in a tournament. And Nana Konadu went to visit them in the stadium. And then she let them sit on the grass with her and started talking to them. And somehow the GBC people sort of played the live. It was very I couldn't believe a first lady would sit on the grass and be telling them that you are going to play for Ghana, play hard. So the woman, dear.
She was an athlete, though. She
Nana
was an
Konadu,
athlete.
dear.
In her interview with Samens on Footprints, she mentioned that she was
Yeah.
one of the top athletes in KNUST.
She was.
She was,
in
she was Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings.
Oh,
But she also went to
Nana
GIS.
Nana
She
Konadu, they did for more.
She went to Ghana
everything
International
from
School before she went to
Agyeman-Rawlings,
Achimota.
Yes.
And honestly, when I think, I went to Tam International School. I mean, you laugh at us that we are Dadabees and all that. But looking at someone like her,
And to be so practical.
honestly,
that's
and
so true.
knowing that
Yeah.
she could have been anywhere in the world doing anything.
Yeah.
Many of us who follow her and follow her work, who went to international schools, especially women,
Yeah.
we said, I know we have to be home and pay our
Exactly.
quota.
Wow.
Once you have a certain privilege, you have no choice but to be home and give back. So these are the ways in which she's ingrained that spirit of patriotism,
Yes.
of a woman
The
who
woman.
can do.
Yeah.
For me, if I think of a first lady, I always think of Nana Konadu.
Yep.
And if I think of a woman leading, she's the person who comes to mind in the way she does it.
Most definitely.
Fearlessly, And she's not trying to say I'm better than my husband.
No,
She's just saying that this is my path,
Yes,
and
I'll
I'm
do it.
complementing it. I'm going to do mine in a different way. And in many ways, she was more effective. Who do we have on the line?
But we have our tourism minister on the line, Ablaji Fagomashi.
Oh, Minister
Another
for
empowered woman.
Tourism.
Yeah.
tourism.
Culture,
Culture
and creative arts.
You know, and they are both very artistic people too. So
And she's my member of parliament.
me
You
too.
should add
Why
that.
you?
Yes, yes,
Why?
All right, let's speak to her. So, we're talking about the by the fireside. I'm not sure if Honorable Ablaji Fagomashi was part of that production.
She was.
She was.
Very
Honorable
much
Minister,
so.
can you confirm if you were part of the production of the by the fireside program, which was sponsored by the 31st December Women's Movement? And good morning, by the way.
Good morning, Bernard. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So yes, let's pick it up from the by the fireside, and then we'll broaden it.
Yeah.
Were you part of the production itself? Were you hosting at some point? Just clarify for us your role in that
Thank
production.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you in the studio. Atioko, my daughter, how are you?
I'm very well, Mama. Good morning.
Great. Which is Kai, you owe me. Don't tell me that I'm your MP. Please, you owe me. Come and pay.
Is it you? Oh,
Oh, really? Oh, Manakuku, Emuledo, Mama, Mama, Nemia Gluka,
You go talk through.
Bernard, yes. So first of all, I worked with Bibi Groma. And Bibi Groma started the acting of By the Far Side. So initially it was the adults who were acting in it before Madame changed it to having children do the play itself. And yes, I started working with By the Far Side as a production manager, production assistant. And the executive producer at the time was Mr. Ebo Hodgson of blessed memory, who was the deputy chairman of the National Commission on Culture. And then after that, I did makeup for them, I did props, and then eventually I became the producer of the show. And so I worked very closely with Mami Dokno, who was the host. And for many years, it was Kofi Middleton Mens who was the director of the show for us. And yes, it is a 31st December Women's Movement production. So they sponsored it. And if I was struggling with finding finances, all I had to do was write. And I got the support that I needed to have the production done. Ambassador Victor Smith worked with Mrs. Rawlings at the time, and if I had my memo ready and I wasn't getting a response, all I had to do was try and catch him. And then, the memo will get to Madame's desk, and approval will be given for the finances to be released to me. I'm so crushed, Bernard.
We haven't even started talking about her yet. I'm using the by the fighters as an entry.
By the
But was she
Fighters, yes.
personally interested in the show? Was she watching it? Was she giving feedback? What was her vision for the program?
She was. And one of the things is that if the children danced and there was too much pelvic movement in the dance, she would call me and say, it's a children's program. They are not supposed to be doing dances with such emphatic, she would say, emphatic pelvic movement in children's dance will not be tolerated. I'll say, yes, madam. And so she will watch, and sometimes she'll get fabrics that she'll give to us to use for the costumes and so on. And apart from by the far side, she was also interested in children participating in national affairs. So Apioko mentioned the Queen coming to Ghana. She called me and said they had to do an Akwaba dance of a sort. And she was part of the rehearsal. She participated in the rehearsal with the children. She didn't just direct affairs at 31st. She was an integral part of everything, every detail. Like she always had a comb that she would comb through whatever it is that had the name of 31st December Women's Movement attached to. So yes, to answer your question directly.
So how did she influence your decision to enter politics? Because I know you are in the performing arts. At what point, what kind of influence did she have in your decision?
The influence would be that I met Mrs. Rawlings when I was 19 years old. So she Miss Auntie Cecilia Johnson and Sharia Ite, Auntie Sati, and Madame Betty Moldidrisu. All these women were, they were in my head, you know, if you understand what I mean. They were in my head, they were controlling how I position myself as a Ghanaian woman. But to pick the form to contest, that she didn't have any direct role to play in it, because by that time, I had offended her by not joining her party. And so it was President Rawlings rather who blessed me to go and contest. I went to inform him rather that I was going to contest the elections. And he blessed me, Dr. Jokoto and Dr. Agumenu. And unfortunately for the two brothers, they didn't win. I won. And so Rawlings rather was the person who encouraged me to contest in the elections. I remember vividly the day I went to tell him. I went with W.R. McCall and a few of my colleagues, my comrades from the constituency, to inform Rawlings, but not Mrs. Rawlings, when I decided to come into active politics.
So how would you place her in terms of women activism in Africa, political leaders who were women? Where does she stand? How influential would you consider her to have been?
I think that if we will be fair and honest, we should give her all the credit as the one who was visible and laid the strong foundation upon which all of us have now built our careers on, or our occupation on. I think that we have not done justice to that as people. And sometimes it surprises me that intellectuals don't give her that credit. But as a child who grew up under her feet, I think that what she stands for has to be chronicled and celebrated by this country before she leaves the earth. You know, I mean, she's gone, but she's still here. The example she gave us was that you can be a woman, you can be a career woman, and you can be politically active, and you can be socially correct, and you can be anything that you wanted to be. It's cliche, but she lived it in every sense of the word. Apioko mentioned her role when she went to that assembly to go and do this. It was huge, Bernard. It was huge. And the fact that she made a conscious effort to pull women along, that yes, you are a woman at home taking housekeeping money, maybe not, but you can do it for yourself. I want to, her husband introduced this word into our politics. She conscientized us to dare to be different, to dare to do anything that we could do. So for me, maybe other women were there before her, but like the Kwame Nkrumah story, you see, many people will say that they were there, they were doing but we know he's the founder. That is that kind of situation that I placed Mrs. Rawlings in. That many people under Kwame Nkrumah, women were given slots to be in parliament, but the one who really brought politics and women's activism strongly in this country was Mrs. Rawlings, and kudos to her. May her soul rest in perfect peace.
So yeah, of course, let me allow you to pay your final tribute to her, and of course to the family. Of course, I started the discussion talking about 31st December and by the fireside, but yeah. I am sure it will be appropriate for you to just say a few final words about her on air.
You know, last week, her daughters, Zana called me about something they're doing for their father. And Amina and Yasanswa wanted to see me. So I said, okay, they should come to the office in the evening so we can catch up and boss. Because remember when I was producing by the far side, they were young and they were so respectful, and they would come, when they're coming to see their mother, they would stop and greet each of us individually. And I said, oh, come and let's catch up. So they came, and at some point in the conversation, I asked, is mommy eating now? Or she's still asking for crackers? And they said, she's still doing it. And we all had such a good laugh. This was, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday last week. And for her to just bow out like that, it's hard. But I am the woman I am today sorry, I'm getting emotional. I'm the woman I am today because of the examples that she showed me. And it doesn't matter that she and I, in the last few, like 5 years, no, not 5 years, so from 2012, as Uncle Victor said the other day in the media, from 2012 that our relationships strained. I still give her credit for anything good that I have done for this country because she made it possible for me to put my mind to doing that. So, for all Ghanaian women, Baba Namikata, Wafemo, Japoe, thank you, CTFM, for what you do. Thank you for the examples you also have been setting for our country in the media space and in sharing your corporate image so beautifully for us to emulate. So
thank you very much.
I want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Abla. Thank you. And condolences to you and to all of us. That was the Minister for Tourism, Creative Arts and Culture.
And creative.